can't tell.
He'll explain that to you.
Okay.
Because I always forget what it is. It looks like a microphone to me. But Arrow, what is that?
It's a coup stick. It's a Native American coup stick, and it is to show courage as well as forgiveness when it comes to, they would walk into different nations and they would touch their enemy on the shoulder, and it was a way of just saying, hey, look, we can still get along even though we're at war.
It's beautiful. It almost has a look of a dream catcher.
Well, it sure
yes.
does. It sure does. It sure does. And you know, the dream catcher, in all honesty, that was how they shared stories. They would put stories inside the dream catchers. It's not something that purifies your dreams or anything like that. The real dream catchers were done by the women, and they would leave them behind as they traveled to find like buffalo and other places to eat.
So interesting. All right. Well, I wish I had a dream catcher to share my story with you.
Hey, Arrow, I hope Jazzy's sitting there with you. This is going to be interesting.
She's right.
Okay,
she's
cool.
always about 2 feet from me, if even that. I mean, she's always with me, because I swear this is her show. I just happen to be the one that's talking. It's her questions.
And Arrow, before we start, what is Jazzy?
Jazzy is a rescued pointer.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
she's my little girl, and I'm gonna be very honest with you, Amy. She was really treated badly before I got her, and when she got here, she destroyed everything. And I remember looking at her in the eyes in 2018 and saying, "I'm not taking you back, but I'm gonna learn everything I can to know who you are and what you are, and you're going to be my child." And we have been inseparable ever since.
You did the right thing. You absolutely did the right thing. And, well, we can even talk about this when we get on, but sometimes rescued animals come with some history, and we have to allow them to get past that so they can be the pets that they really were meant to be.
I think I'm her pet. I think that she treats me like I'm her puppy.
Well, yes, you're her slave, actually.
To put this book together, it excites me because I have always been a big fan of the heroes behind the scenes, because you really are. We need these pets. No matter how famous you are, the humanism of it all is that we need to have vets that take care of our pets.
So I think pets make us better people,
yeah.
Right? So they allow us to love in a way that sometimes people can't do with other people. They are an essential part of our lives, and we learned that, firsthand during COVID, when people were isolated, people who lived alone were really feeling like so much pain from not being surrounded by others that they loved, and found relief from getting a pet. So they're different from us. They walk on fours. They have fur everywhere. They don't speak in a language that we can answer, but they're family members.
Well, I just learned yesterday from an expert that people who suffer from, that disorder, that when there's not enough light or they have too much darkness in their life, that pets and dogs are the ones that really do help them get through that. Instead of just lighting up your house to break free of the darkness, a dog will help you along the way.
I could list, dozens of medical conditions that have been shown scientifically to improve in the presence of animals. Petting a dog will lower someone's blood pressure. Yes. Talking to animals decreases your heart rate. There are so many ways that animals make us healthier. I tell a story in the book about a woman who was quite elderly, and she lived alone with an elderly pet. And when her dog got sick and passed away, her life was basically over. The dog was the reason she got up in the morning, why she got dressed, why she ate. She took the dog out for a walk. And 1 week after that dog passed away, I went to visit her, not as a veterinarian, but as a friend. And I saw my dear friend disheveled, unshowered, in a nightgown, no teeth in her mouth. And I realized that I was going to lose her unless she had a reason to live. Mm-hmm. And I found for her an older toy poodle rescue dog. I literally took him from the top of the line. Everybody wanted him, but he was medical therapy for this woman. And when I brought him to her house, she said, no, I can't possibly have a dog. And I said, no, I didn't bring this dog for you. I brought this dog because I need a place for him to stay tonight. I have no place for him to go, or I don't know what could possibly happen to him. All of this was untrue. I left the dog with her that night. I came back the next day under the pretenses of picking him up, and she was dressed and clean and her teeth were in. And she said, "I'm so glad you brought him to me. He needed me." And they lived together until her passing. Wow. And, this is an example of the kinds of stories that I tell in my book. Yes, I'm a veterinarian and I go to people's homes because they call me to give their dogs vaccines or because their dog or cat is sick. But what I've seen in the past 32 years is the human condition. And as a veterinarian, I'm witness to more than just what goes on with the animals. And what I love about doing house calls is I can be part of that. And sometimes my skills are helpful for the people as well.
So in a really special way, you're also a psychologist because, you know our lifestyle.
So I wish I took more courses in psychology and psychiatry because, yes, it's very much a part of what I do. But I think it boils down to common sense that, oftentimes when I see people, they're in need. They're going through what could be one of the worst experiences of their lives. People have told me that they grieve more when their pet has passed than they do when a family member has passed. And that doesn't mean they didn't love their family member. But what we have to remember is, your dog or your cat goes to bed with you every night. You wake up with them. Mm-hmm. You are part of their lives 24/7, even though they may not be part of our lives 24/7. And so their loss is really devastating to a lot of people. And you have to, as a veterinarian, have empathy for this. And me and my team, we all have pets. We all know the pain that people are going through. And we stay with them to help them deal with that.
I'll show you how deep I get. If they say that the human 1 year is 7 years to a dog, what is an 8-hour workday to a dog when you're not home? To me, that has to be months.
I have good news for you. Dogs live for the moment.
Oh.
So they're pretty good about that. And it's interesting. There have been studies that show where they're recording animals in the people's absence. When you leave, they get very excited. And then you know what they do? They nap. Yeah. But if you're on the same schedule every day, right before you get home, they get very excited. So you might think they've been excited like that the whole time, but usually that's not the case.
I'm such a freak because sitting next to me, to my left, my last 8 rescues, they're ashes. And in my heart, they're still very much alive and they're very much a part of what I do on a daily basis. Because, it's like I don't believe they ever leave. They're still with us spiritually.
So their bodies are gone, but that soul that they have, I think if you're a dog person, like I can tell you are, like I am, and so many people I know, that stays with you forever. People tell me all the time, as they take out their phone and I'll see their screensaver, "Oh, that was my beloved Fluffy who passed, 10 years ago." They're very much a part of our lives. And, that is what really compelled me to write this book. I had been witness to so many relationships. I come home every day from work and say to my husband, "You will not believe what happened today." And sometimes it's something that the pet did. Sometimes it's something that the person did. Sometimes the interaction between the two. And in his infinite wisdom, he said, "I think you should go write that down." And that's what created Pets in the City.
One of the things, it's not underneath my skin, but I'm trying to understand it even more. The people that bring in dogs that have the little sign that says service dogs, and it's not a service dog. I get it. I'm a codependent to my baby behind me. But I can't take her into a grocery store. I just can't do it.
Yeah, I think you touch on 2 points. The first is, I think it's time for us to lighten up our laws about where animals can go. We all live with animals. They come in our kitchens. We don't need to be afraid of eating food around, a dog. I think what we need to do is train our pets so that they're good citizens and they behave themselves when they're around food and around other people. And then perhaps we wouldn't have, these restrictions. The whole thing about service animals has become so abused. And people can get, certification, and then their pets can go places where animals aren't supposed to be. And it would be fine if those animals behaved properly, but sometimes they don't. And ultimately that, makes it harder for everyone.
Well, Jazzy loves Lowe's. She likes going into a hardware store, and I think it's because, I take her in there because it's not food. What is she going to hurt? But my God, she loves to go in there.
Well, it's fun. There are other people. There are good smells in a hardware store. And, again, dogs get stimulated by, different environments. So I think Jazzy's telling you she wants all those crazy new smells.
Now, I've been with the uber rich, and one of the things that I've taken note of when it comes to those is that they like to isolate their dogs. In other words, oh, here are my pretty puppies. Look at them, look at them. Okay, now go back into that room. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But I can't say anything.
I have been so blessed by the wealthy and the celebrity clients that I've had throughout the years, because once we get over the fact that you are the piano man or you are, the famous Elton John, these people love their pets, and their pets, they walk them, they sleep with them, they feed them. So I've never really had to deal with somebody who had just the the pet for, an accessory pet was the word I was looking for. My people love their pets. Maybe that's a New York City thing.
Well, that's so interesting that you say that, because the last time I was in New York City, I did take the time to look at everybody with their dogs. It is such a relationship that people have. When you go down to get a bagel or a coffee, the dog's right there with them.
So, this is just conjecture. It is hard to live in New York City. It's a lot of hustle and bustle, et cetera. It's stressful. Maybe we have our pets to make our lives a little bit easier.
Yeah. Do we all talk baby talk to our dogs? I do. I'm very guilty of it.
Dogs love a high-pitched sound.
Really?
So even though we might look silly, when you talk baby talk, their ears go up, they pay attention, they like it. I have seen people actually have conversations with their dogs as well in normal tones of voice. So, just let me know if your dog answers you.
She does, in a very loving way. It's almost like the look. And it's just my crazy imagination, but I feel like that we do have that connection together.
I believe you do. I mean, the things that you say about your dog tell me that you are the kind of person who would have a connection with your dog on a level that's like very special.
Oh, yeah, because when we take that transition walk through this forest, I mean, it's amazing where she can go out there and smell everything. It's a good walk to her. And it's like, oh, my God, I can't wait to do this again another day.
It's funny because I always tell people, at least a few times a week, let your dog take you on a walk. Yeah. Especially in New York City, we have to walk our dogs on a tight leash. We're usually in a rush. So we're going down the street and saying, no, not there. Come with me. Yep. Let your dog set the way to go. I think it's a wonderful enrichment activity for them.
One of the things that a lot of people struggle with is when the dogs hit the grass and they start rolling around. Now, I'm fearful of it because I'm afraid the owner's going to come out and say, you're destroying my grass, where my wife goes, let your dog be your dog. Come on, that's what dogs do.
I think you're both right. If your dog's doing it on your neighbor's property and your neighbor doesn't like dogs, maybe be fearful of it and move your dog. Yeah. But your wife is right. That's a normal behavior for dogs. They like to get their coats covered with the scent of the outside. In evolutionary terms, it was very helpful if you got your coat covered by the scent of the grass or detritus or anything that was on the grass, because that would mask your scent. And dogs were hunters. So if you're out there hunting and the wind is blowing in the wrong direction and dog scent goes to your prey, they're going to run away. Yeah. But if that wind picks up the smell of the grass and other things that would normally be on the ground, your prey isn't frightened and you stand a better chance.
Wow. The relationship that you have with those that come to you, because I've been with my veterinarian for 33 years, and what she's had to go through, especially when the day I invited her into our forest and I knew that it was time for Woji to transition. And I mean, the tears that we shared together, I mean, you get so close to us, and yet that place out there in the forest is still just as vibrant as anything.
So because I go to people's homes, Sadly, one of the things that we do is we help animals transition because, of course, it is so much easier for the people and the pets to be at home. And I talk about this a lot in the book. It takes a toll on me and my staff because we all love our own pets and we can see ourselves going through what they're going through, and we all have been there. And also, as you say, you've been with your veterinarian for decades. We know these families, we know these animals, we've watched the cycle of life, and there's never a dry eye when this is happening. But again, it's part of life. It's the sad part of life. But we feel it's better for the people to have their emotional experience in the comfort of their own homes. And it's so much better for the pets not to have to travel to the veterinarian's office.
I think one of the greatest things about your book, Pets in the City, is the fact that listeners can really get into this book and realize when they take their dog to the vet, don't think about how much it's going to cost. Just don't do it. Listen to the stories, read the stories, embrace your side of the journey.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, veterinarians are well-educated medical professionals, and we have the ability to do amazing medical and surgical care for pets. Sadly, that does cost a lot of money, and most people don't have pet health insurance, which I highly recommend you get to help with some of the burden of the cost.
Oh, yeah, because when Woji swallowed a penny, because dogs will pick up anything, $8,000. And it was, oh, my God. It was like, but the thing is, I didn't blink an eye because I wanted my child. I wanted my child to be great again.
And I want to point out to your listeners, coins are extremely dangerous because when they get swallowed, stomach acid breaks down those metals, which are toxic. So don't let your pets or your kids eat coins.
Listen, I don't know if you can hear this. That's the penny inside of a special container. I saved the penny.
You saved it.
I did because I wanted to serve as a forever reminder. Pick things up, including coins.
I have to tell you a funny anecdote that's in the book. A guy called me and said he couldn't find his headphones. No, I'm not talking about earbuds that you put in your ears. I'm talking about the two round black things that go over your ears with the thing that goes over your head. And he said he looked everywhere in his studio apartment. And I'm like, you don't think the dog could have eaten them? It's not possible. He's like, I don't know, Doc. I can't find them. I said, you know what? We're going to x-ray your dog. And in the dog's stomach were those two black things with the metal piece that goes around. For the life of me, I have no idea how he could have possibly have swallowed it because it was bigger than the opening that goes into the stomach. But they were there. The dog was fine. We removed them surgically. The headphones didn't work afterwards, but the dog did.
Where can you, because I'm sure there's some group that you belong with that really could use some donations.
Well, I'm a big supporter of Best Friends. Yeah. Best Friends is a national organization. Their mission is to make the United States no kill. They will rescue any animal and rehabilitate it and help to find a forever home. So if you're inclined to spend some time or some money on an organization that does really good work, I highly recommend Best Friends. And then if you have a little extra money, go to your favorite bookstore and pick up a copy of Pets in the City.
Thank you so much for being here today. Please come back anytime in the future.
Thank you so much. I had a wonderful time.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay, Doctor?
Thank you, and you too.
Thank you. Hello and good morning, Skinny Michael.
Well, a beautiful morning to you from the hottest part of the country.
Oh, it's hot down here, dude. Holy
That's
cow.
what I'm saying.
Holy
We're just sizzling, not hot. It's sizzling. Woo. And you can take it away with Susan.
Good morning, Susan. How are you doing today?
Hi, good. Are you there? Am I? Oh, I don't see you. Okay.
I'm one of those radio people.
Great.
I'm one of those radio people.
Oh, okay, great.
It was one of those.
I'm doing fine.
It was it was one of those things that when I saw Casey Kasem on the Hardy Boys back in the 1970s, I lost everything. It was like, oh my God, my vision of who you are, Casey, is gone because I now know what you look like, which I think is the reason why I enjoyed listening to the group Kiss, because I didn't know what they looked like.
Right.
And what you do, I mean, it's so exciting because, I mean, you get up close and personal to bring things to life. I mean, but we as viewers and readers don't get to see it. And to me, that's the excitement of it all.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the behind the scenes, the whole process of making a movie is often more dramatic and filled with more comedy and tears than watching the movie.
I mean, that's almost like the Fall Guy to me was one of the most real shows, only because it showed the action that does take place behind the scenes. And I swear that we need more of that. And a book like you've got here, Desperately Seeking Something, gives us that inside view of the experience.
Yeah, that was my hope, was to talk about, the triumphs, the struggles, and all the woulda, shoulda, couldas in between.
When you put it together, I mean, I like the way that that you lay out the book in the way with acts, and I mean, it really gives it an opportunity for the reader to stay in the moment of the index, stay there for a little bit, see what you're about ready to go through, and then decide to take that first step. I mean, I think that's the longest I've ever been in the index of a book.
Well, it's a journey, I mean, It was interesting because I wrote this during the pandemic. And at the time, the world was everything was so uncertain. I had a lot of time to kind of reflect on my past. And I realized, I had been making movies for 4 decades. And I had read, reviews about the films I've made and articles about myself. And everything was sort of from the outside looking at me. But I decided I really wanted to tell a story from the inside looking out. So that was my goal, and also to tell a story about what it was like to be a woman who wanted to be a film director at a time when there really weren't many. I mean, maybe less than a handful of us in the early 80s.
How did you get people to say yes in a man's world? Because I mean, that's what inspires me about this book, is that it just feels like that you would see a mountain or something in front of you and say, that's not going to get in the way. I'm saying yes to myself. Let's grow forward.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's why I started out as an independent filmmaker, because I was pretty realistic. I knew that I could go out to Hollywood and knock on doors until my fists were bloody. And chances were zero that anyone was gonna, give me the opportunity to to direct a feature film. So I decided I would give myself that opportunity. If no one was gonna hire me to direct, I would hire myself. And so, I mean, that was what was great about the New York indie film scene back in the early 80s, is we were all making movies with no money, with non-professional actors, with, begging, stealing, borrowing, trading information. And, but without any rules also, we weren't asking anyone's permission. We were just sort of doing it. It was almost like that same thing of forming a garage band, and it was making those kinds of movies like, hey, let's make a movie. Let me, gather together a group of friends, and for no money, we'll just do it. And, and fortunately, in my case, it worked out.
When you talk about those garage bands, I want to talk about your production as well, only because I saved all my cassette tapes from the 1970s from the garage bands where we thought we were in tune. Do you have those kinds of things too, where you thought, man, this is the greatest thing, and then when you go back, you just kind of giggle about it because you know that it's not the quality you thought it was?
Well, I've seen, in terms of my own work, I've seen some of my early film, NYU Film School exercises, and some of them are pretty, they're learning experiences.
Exactly.
That's what I back it up to. You make the mistakes and hopefully you learn from them. But I also think that when I look back at some of my early stuff, that there's a grittiness to it that I really like, that feels authentic and real. Yeah. And, that's what I liked about, some of the early, punk stuff or new wave music, as well as the indie, the low budget indie films. They felt there was something authentic and, hey, I can do this. I don't care what you think. Yeah. I'm just going to do it.
I've always thought of indie films as being the closest thing to Broadway. And the reason why is because you've got to get in there, get that shot, and get out. We only have so many days to get this thing done. You better be on your A game.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, certainly working with such a small budget makes you it makes you have to really know what you're aiming for and what you want to get, because celluloid was expensive. I was filming on 16 millimeter and then later on 35 millimeter, but film was cheap. This was pre-video.
Wow.
No one had these great, high definition cameras and lenses and stuff. So, you would do 1, 2, 3 takes and then boom. Also we were filming out on the streets. So to some extent, whatever happened in the background, you let happen. If people were looking in the camera, if they, if there was suddenly airplanes flying overhead, you just went with it. And there's something kind of wonderful and raw about all that too.
Your book is filled with some of the most amazing quotes, like Rita Mae Brown. The reward of conformity is that everyone likes you but yourself. Oh my God, we've all been there, but to be so honest with yourself with a quote like this.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up, I think some of, something that informed me was that I did grow up in the 60s in a very homogenous suburb outside of Philadelphia where, everyone sort of was, at least on the surface, seemed the same. Mm-hmm. And although that was, a very safe environment to grow up in, I kind of felt a little bit like an outsider. So I would look at, the big nearby city that, with the bright lights was New York. So I would always kind of look at that and thought, wouldn't it be interesting to one day get there and, see what life is like there? Because that's where all the cool, interesting people are at. All the cool, interesting people that leave their small town and, are looking for something else. So that idea of desperately seeking something has been a theme that resonated with me from a young teenager on.
Was it tough to be so transparent inside the pages? And it's as we write it, it's like, okay, this is our experiences, we grow from it, but to present it now to us as the reader, when you go into a new home and the entire family walks into the shower, that's like, oh my God, that is such a beautiful moment.
Well, you know what? I like stories. So I decided to tell the stories that I thought other people might relate to, but also said something about my life. I think also having written this now, being 70, I'm now 71 actually, gave me the time to kind of reflect back with some objectivity and with less, I wasn't trying to get even with anyone. I wasn't trying to tell tales out of school. I was just trying to tell a story, and with all its ups and downs, that would explain why I wanted to make movies and might also be a guide for the next generation of young men and women, but the next generation of filmmakers who wanted to tell their stories.
That's why this book is so important, because the medium has changed. It's not just about the TV or the big screen anymore. It's about what they're putting on TikTok, what they're putting anywhere, because there are so many platforms out there where these people can create their own movies. They think they're stars before they're even going to class to learn.
Yeah. Well, the whole social media, internet, that changed everything. And it is interesting that now people can tell their stories, with their iPhone, and put it on TikTok and gather a following of people who relate to that story. I think that that's wonderful. But one of the things that I am a little nostalgic about and a little sad about is that so many of the big movie theater, the chains have closed. And that, I loved as a kid, that was my escape from my kind of monotonous suburban childhood, was to go into a big movie theater where you were watching a movie up on a big screen, eating popcorn, and you were in a room with 300 other people having this communal experience. That doesn't happen so often anymore. And there was magic in that experience that I think today you get to see a lot more a lot more things are streaming, and that's great. But it doesn't have that communal experience, and for that I'm nostalgic.
So when this book becomes a movie, who gets to play you, Anne Hathaway or Tina Fey?
Well, both of them are, when I started out, I was 27?
Wow.
So I got to find a good 27-year-old.
But see, that's what I love about writing, especially, because a thought is put on a page. It's almost like a tree that, it starts off as a seed, becomes the tree, becomes the paper that we write on, which then changes people's lives. You do the same exact thing. You reach out to anybody who wants to receive it.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, again, it goes back to storytelling. And if you're a storyteller, you can put it in a song, you can put it in a book, a TikTok video or whatever. It's the need to kind of, I think it's the need to kind of say, maybe it's the need to say, I exist, I'm here, here's my story, and hopefully you'll relate to it on some level. Interesting. It's weird when I've gone back and looked at some of my old films to see the use of selfies. In Smithereens, the main character takes photos of herself and she Xeroxes them on a copy machine and she puts them up on the walls of subways and all over town. That's the same as, that's the same as social media for that time. Madonna, when we first see her in Desperately Seeking Susan, we see her taking Polaroids of herself. These are all early forms of selfies and early forms of saying, I'm here, I exist, pay attention. Yeah.
With you being so close to the actors and those that are behind the scenes, I got to tell you a story about Madonna. And she was in the studio with my wife's ex-husband, who was a record producer, and they were putting the song La Isla Bonita together. And she left her gum on the RCA microphone. And it's one of those where it's like, did he get rid of it? No. He didn't care. He just went out and got a new microphone.
Really? No, it was so interesting working with her because it was the first time I had ever seen a career skyrocket in such a short period of time. And eyewitness to that was pretty fascinating because when we started the movie, a few people had seen her movies on early MTV, but it was borderline or holiday, but it was before Like a Virgin album hit. And during the 9 weeks we were filming, just to watch that trajectory and to see how, in fact, when we had to do it, the executives at the studio did not know who Madonna was originally. And they made me do a screen test with her. And while we were in the park doing a screen test, I remember some young people walking by and going, "Oh, look over there, that's Sydney Lauper." She was that unknown. And by the end of the movie, we needed security guards to keep people away. So that was pretty fascinating.
Wow. The way you said eyewitness just a couple of seconds ago, instantly my mind goes, why didn't she call the book that? Because in reality, you were and still are the eyewitness.
Well, do you think that would have been a catchier title? Well, should I have done that?
Either that or make it a second title, a subtitle, because I just the way you said it with such passion that it was like, whoa, you caught me.
Maybe that'll be the sequel. Thank you for planting that seed.
Were you listening to music while you were putting this together? And the reason why is because there is a melody to the way that you put those words into those paragraphs.
Was I listening to music? I do listen to music. I do love music, and I do love, I'm nostalgic about the music that I loved in the 80s when I was, starting out. But one of the things that I have been listening to a lot is, I think that what's going on with these young female rock, pop, stars right now is absolutely amazing. And even more amazing, what's happening in the music with women in the music business than women in the film business. The music business women are taking over. They are it's just amazing, the power and the talent and the way they're controlling their own careers.
Yes.
It's pretty interesting.
Somehow, some way, you've got to get a hold of Becky Bordeaux from the group I can't even say the name, Dystopica, because, I mean, yesterday when I was talking with her, she reminded me so much of Deborah Harry and in control of that band. Oh, my God. Yeah. And the music, in her album is out, and it's just so, I'm so glad that you brought that up about women in music, because you're right. They're taking over.
Yeah. And they are making their own rules. I mean, that's what I guess I was trying to do in film. And what is happening, it always happened in the independent film world early on, because as an independent filmmaker, you are your own boss. You're not asking anyone's permission. You are in control of your career. In the studio, it's taken much longer for that to happen, because let's face it, for a long time, and probably still, the people at the top, the ones that make those decisions, are guys.
Yep.
You know, now they're corporations. I don't even know if they're people anymore. That's how much the industry has changed, you know, which is a big change, you know, which really affects the movies that are being made. But it's so refreshing and empowering to see what is going on in music right now. And the respect that these women are getting and the money that they're making. Yep. I mean, I didn't make films to make money. That wasn't my primary goal. You know, I wanted to tell stories and be creative. And I think they are doing the same. Plus, they're making lots of money, which is showing men that they can compete in that arena the same way that male performers have.
Wow. You've got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Thank you so much. And thanks for that title.
You be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Nice talking with you.
You bet. Nice talking to you.
Bye.